Okay, next target. Hey, there's our buddy. I wouldn't stand back there. Here we go, another talking hands video. Wah, 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 wah. Alright, so this is the follow-up video to the first video about the Slug probe and tungsten hammer weight. I'll link that video in the description below. If you haven't been watching the channel, my Maverick has the Quick Tune system, which consists of the hybrid adjustment knob, which replaces the power wheel and the fine adjust screw, and the second regulator adjustment knob. And both of these let all your adjustments be toolless except for the first regulator. I've got my first regulator set up to I think 170 bar, so I got plenty of headroom to go. You know, usually I'll run down as low as maybe 80 bar and up as high as 135, 140 bar. If you haven't seen the video on the Quick Tune system, check that out. I'll link it below. FX Maverick or FX Wildcat with the Quick Tune system. It's the simplest system to tune that I have seen so far. Okay, so here are the hammers, and from left to right, this one is the original factory hammer that came with the Maverick. It's 11.5 grams. The three brass hammers here, this one is 12.1 grams, this one is 13.0 grams, the larger one is 14.4 grams, and then these are a couple of the tungsten hammers, which I've actually cut these down to make them a little bit lighter. The first one here is 21.5 grams, and the second one is just slightly heavier at 22.2 grams. We'll do some experiments with these hammers, see if you can predict what the results will be. Let me get reset for that, and we'll come right back. Got the gun set to about 80, 81 bar. We're going to start off with the factory 11.5 gram hammer. I'm going to start off with that first, just for a baseline. First pellet we're going to shoot is a 25.4 JSB, and this is just for baseline.
752.
81 bar, we should be able to get about 880 feet. Let's dial it up to 7.85. So there's 8 and there's 7.85. Let's try it one more time. JSB 25.4.
875.
Okay, 875, that'll work. And let's shoot one more.
868.
Let's get rid of that first one. And let's shoot 3 for good measure.
870.
Okay, so average 871. So remember that, 871. All right, let's change out to the 13.0 gram hammer and see what the difference in velocity is. All right, and I didn't change anything, so we're still at 7.85, and I didn't touch the regulator. We are still at 81 bar. 25.4 again, and these are weighed, so these are exactly 25.4 to 25.5. Do it again.
891. 881. 877.
A little bit higher. Let's get rid of these 3. Remember, first 3 were 871 average. The average is 883. So 13 gram hammer gives us approximately 12 feet per second faster velocity. Try one more time. So this time we're going to try the 21.5 gram hammer. See if you can anticipate what the result is going to be. And this is 21.5 grain, which is nearly twice as heavy as the original OEM hammer. So let's see what kind of results we get. And again, pellets are the same weight.
881. 879. 877.
So let's get rid of the second 3. Average of 879. So it's actually a slower average than the 13 grain hammer. Is that what you anticipated was going to happen? It's not what I anticipated was going to happen the first time I started playing around with these. Let me explain why a 21 grain hammer actually gives you less velocity than a 13 grain hammer. And just so you can see, let me dial this up to, we're at 7.85, let's go to 6.5. And let's just see what our kind of our maximum velocity is. This will be over dialed for this regulator pressure. So let's see what our maximum velocity is.
900.
900. So there's, there's plenty of top end there, but we're not even getting to that 900 with the 21 grain hammer. So what happened there? All right. Well, let me take this back apart and let me show you. Okay. So this is actually the hammer that I ended up with, and it is 12.84 grams. So let's put this one in and see what happens. I'm going to dial it back to 7.85. 7.85. 12.84 gram hammer. What do you think this one's going to do? Do you think it's going to go faster or slower than the 21 grain tungsten hammer?
900.
900. And that is at 7.85 on the dial, where I ran the 13 grain hammer and the 21.5 grain hammer. Gram hammer. Sorry, I'm getting my grams and grains confused. So why is this? Well, let me bring you in and let me show you. So the reality is hammer weight is really a misnomer. See that, Mom? I used misnomer in a sentence. Pretty good, huh? What's most critical is actually how wide this flange is, because that determines the preload. So long story short, on the 11.5 grain hammer, it has a 4 millimeter flange. This is the 12.2. It has a 2.15 flange. This is the one we ran. This is the 13.0, 406, 405. 4.05 millimeter flange. And remember, it produced a slightly faster velocity than this one. And mainly it's because of that, just because of that extra 0.05 of a millimeter. More the distance than the weight is what gave us that extra speed. So this is the 14.6 gram brass hammer, 8.24, 823, so 8.25 millimeter, 361. So this is the 21.5, and this is the one that produced a slower velocity than the 13 millimeter, and that's because of the difference in flanges. The two finalists that I came up with, and that's basically what I wanted to do is the lightest pellet that I wanted to shoot was the 25 force, and I wanted to go as heavy as possible without changing hammers. So these two hammers here, this brass one and this tungsten one, were my finalists. This has about a 5 millimeter flange, so about a 5 millimeter flange on this one, and the 22.2 gram hammer, about 4.5 millimeter flange, right? And let me show you the bottom end on this rifle. Now, these two hammers both produce about the same. They produce a minimum foot-pounds of about 40 foot-pounds with a 25 grain pellet, and they produce about a maximum foot-pounds of 73 foot-pounds for the tungsten and about 71 or 72 foot-pounds for the brass. I ended up going with the brass because it's lighter than the tungsten, so there's less inertia moving around in there when you shoot the gun. So the brass hammer is the one I ended up going with. And let me show you, let's go with the heaviest one, since this is just slightly larger range than the brass one. I'll show you how this one works on the bottom end. So let me reinstall this real quick. So this is what I want to show you. Let me show you the bottom end with a 25.4 grain. And I've got to tune this down. I've got to air it down. Just loosen the bottle. And it's 2.5 turns until the air starts leaking out. There it goes. And then I just turn the regulator knob open a little bit. And it bleeds out the plenum. When it gets down to 20 or 30 bar, I just dial that knob back in. And tighten the bottle back up. See, if I want to run a 25.4 grain at 850 feet, I need to be about 72 bar. So let's start about 70 bar, see if we can sneak up on it. Okay, now our target velocity that we want to achieve with this hammer spring over dialed, and I'm going to dial it to 8, is about 865. We want to be about 15 feet per second higher than our target velocity. So let's see where this gets us.
858.
So that looks like about 72. Let's try one more.
872.
So I overshot it a little bit, but that's okay. And once we back it down, I'm going to back this all the way out to 10 or 0. I'm going to cock it, and mine stops about 9.96 is where mine stops. So that's 0 for me. With no hammer spring tension, or 0 on the hybrid adjuster, see what speed we get.
840.
840. So let's dial it up to 9.8. See if we can dial in 850.
833.
What happened? Try again.
844. 849.
Okay, there it goes. Not sure why we got the 833.
842. So
I'd say a little bit higher. Let me go to 9.7. Let me just run 3 more.
849. 849. 847.
Run 2 more.
847. 847.
So if I get rid of, let me leave the last 5. Let me get rid of all these. So our last 5 shots had a spread of 2 with a standard deviation of 1. See how that's at a real good balance point. So about 20. So I'm 22 feet per second over our intended velocity. Backed it down, and we ended up at 848. You kind of get the idea. What's the last experiment that I want to do here? Oh, I know. Let me show you the high end while we're here, and that's going to be using a 34 grain JSB, about 135 bar, and 4.7 on the hammer spring. So let me dial it up to 135 bar. And let me check out my cheat sheet here. For the 34 grain, 4.7 is 950. So let's see if that's correct. Let's see if 4.7 is 950, about thereabouts. And let's switch pellets. 34 grain, new string. Okay. So here's 135 bar at 4.7 on the hammer spring, and that should be right at 950.
939.
Oh, I missed it by 10. Let's try one more.
942.
Okay, missed it by 10. So if we want to max this out, let's dial it all the way up to 3.6. Let's see if we can get this up to 970, 980.
963.
Okay, 963. So we can go a little bit higher on the regulator. There's about 140. I'll just do 1 or 2 more.
967. 963.
So 963. Let's try. There's 145.
972.
All right, there we go. So there's 972. That's with the tungsten hammer at 145 bar and maxed out on the hammer spring at 3.6. And last thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to change to the 12.8 gram brass hammer on the tungsten hammer that we're using here, that we just took out. That has a 4.5 millimeter flange and just half millimeter more of preload. Dial this back up to 3.6, and remember, using the Quicktune system, 3.6, it's exactly 3.6. It is right where it was when I was using the tungsten hammer. All right, so let's see what happens here. Should be real close to 970.
970.
Or it'll be exactly 970. Try one more.
900. 72.
That's basically showing you is that, you know, it'll max out this 145 bar regulator pressure. And about the most you can get, the 22 gram hammer and this 12.8 gram hammer is about 150 bar, 145, 150. That's you can't make it hit any harder than that pressure. So if you need to go up to super high pressures like 170, 180, you can use either the brass hammer with the 8 1/4 millimeter flange, or the tungsten hammer, which is nearly twice as heavy. Remember, when I had my original tungsten hammer, it was 26.6 grams. This is 14.6 grams, but they both will max the gun out at, you know, 170, 180 bar. So I guess the moral of the story is all the vendors who sell these sell them by weight, and I really think that's the wrong way to do it. You're actually, you know, the hammers should really be sold by the amount of preload. So on the factory hammer, the steel one here, this should be, you know, labeled as a 4 millimeter hammer. The 12.2 millimeter should be labeled as a 2 millimeter hammer. This brass hammer is really a duplicate of the steel. This one would be a 4 millimeter hammer. Also, this would be an 8 1/4 millimeter hammer. 21.5, this would be a 3.4 millimeter hammer. And this would be a 4.5 millimeter hammer. The last hammer, let me pull it back out of here, is really a 5 millimeter hammer. And you can see, you know, length doesn't really affect anything. It's really about preload. I hope that helps a lot of people. I found that actually very confusing at first because I thought it went by weight, but it does not go by weight. Preload probably accounts for at least 90% of the increased velocity you're going to get using, you know, a non-original hammer. So anyway, hope you found this useful, interesting. If you haven't seen the videos for the Quicktune system, I urge you to go and take a look at those. I'll put links in the description below. Today is April the 11th, and we've actually sold out of all the Quicktune kits until about the end of April, beginning of May. Everything has been real popular so far, and all the feedback has been real positive. If you're thinking about getting a Maverick or a Wildcat, or you own a Maverick or a Wildcat, consider the Quicktune system. We want to thank Tom at High Pressure Pneumatics for helping us out with the hammers and everything. So Tom, really appreciate it. Tom will have more Quicktune systems for sale once we get them back into stock. Please check out Tom's shop, High Pressure Pneumatics, for anything airgun related. Call him. Use the chat feature on the website. He's just great to work with. So I want to do some more work with the 34 grain pellets and see if I can do any better with the bench rest competition. I think I'm in the 170s now, but I haven't messed around with the velocity at all yet. Hopefully I'll roll out some more of those videos. Okay, like, subscribe, hit the alarm bell, and I'll see you next time. All right, thanks. Bye.